Maya Rodriguez had dreamed of becoming a Navy SEAL since she was 12 years old. Growing up in a rough neighborhood in San Diego, she watched her father struggle with PTSD after his tours in Afghanistan. He never talked about what happened over there, but she saw the pain in his eyes every night when he thought no one was looking. Her mother worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table while her father battled his demons with a bottle of whiskey. The military recruitment office became Maya's second home during her senior year of high school. She studied every pamphlet, memorized every requirement, and trained harder than anyone else in her class. While other girls her age were worried about prom dates and college parties, Maya was doing push-ups in the rain and running 10 miles before breakfast. When she finally enlisted, Maya quickly proved herself as one of the most dedicated recruits the Navy had ever seen. She excelled in every training exercise, scored the highest marks in weapons training, and could outrun most of the male recruits. Her instructors were impressed, but they all said the same thing when she mentioned her ultimate goal. The SEALs aren't ready for someone like you, Rodriguez. But Maya refused to give up. She spent 3 years in regular Navy service, building her reputation as a fierce and reliable soldier. She completed multiple tours overseas, earned commendations for bravery, and saved countless lives during rescue operations. Every achievement brought her one step closer to her dream, but she knew the biggest challenge was still ahead. Commander Jake "Iron" Morrison was a legend among the SEALs. At 38, he had led more successful missions than any other officer in recent history. His team respected him not just for his tactical brilliance but for his unwavering commitment to bringing every soldier home alive. He had seen too many good people die because someone wasn't properly prepared, and he wasn't about to let that happen on his watch. When Maya's application for SEAL training crossed his desk, Morrison barely glanced at it before tossing it aside. He had seen dozens of similar applications from women over the years, and while he respected their courage, he knew the brutal reality of what his teams faced in the field. The physical demands were crushing, the mental pressure was unbearable, and the margin for error was zero. In his experience, even the toughest women couldn't handle what the SEALs required. Maya's commanding officer, Captain Sarah Chen, had a different opinion. She had served alongside Maya in 2 combat zones and had never seen anyone more determined or capable. When she learned that Morrison had rejected Maya's application without even reviewing her service record, she decided to pay him a visit. "Commander Morrison," Chen said as she entered his office without knocking, "I think you made a mistake." Morrison looked up from his paperwork with annoyance. "Captain Chen, I'm assuming this is about Rodriguez. And no, I didn't make a mistake. The answer is no, and it will always be no." Chen dropped Maya's full service record on his desk with a loud thud. "Did you know she single-handedly extracted 12 wounded soldiers from a collapsed building in Kandahar? Or that she completed a 30-mile forced march with a dislocated shoulder and still finished first in her unit? This woman has more combat experience and commendations than half your current team." Morrison glanced at the thick file but remained unmoved. "I don't care if she's Wonder Woman herself. The SEALs have standards that exist for a reason. We operate in the most dangerous environments on Earth, often behind enemy lines with no backup. One weak link can get everyone killed." "So you won't even give her a chance to prove herself?" Chen asked. "There's nothing to prove," Morrison replied firmly. "Biology is biology. Physics is physics. She doesn't have the upper body strength to carry a wounded teammate. She can't match the swimming endurance required for underwater infiltrations, and she'll be a distraction to my men when they need to focus on staying alive." Chen leaned forward, her voice steady but intense. "Commander, with all due respect, you're making assumptions based on prejudice, not facts. Maya Rodriguez is stronger, faster, and tougher than most men I've served with. But more importantly, she has something that can't be taught: the heart of a warrior." Morrison stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. "Captain, I appreciate your loyalty to your soldier, but my decision is final. Rodriguez can serve her country with honor in any number of other capacities, but she will never be a SEAL under my command." As Chen left his office, she turned back one more time. "Commander, I've been in this military for 15 years, and I've learned that the biggest mistakes we make are the ones based on fear rather than facts. You're afraid of change, and that's going to cost you the best soldier you'll never have." Morrison watched her go, then picked up Maya's file. Despite his firm stance, something about Chen's words nagged at him. He had built his reputation on making tough decisions based on clear thinking, not emotions or politics. But as he flipped through page after page of Maya's achievements, a small voice in the back of his mind began to whisper, "What if you're wrong?" That night, Morrison couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the missions where he had needed someone smaller and faster to get through tight spaces, or situations where a different perspective might have saved lives. He had always prided himself on being open to new tactics and strategies. But when it came to women in his unit, he realized he had closed his mind completely. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target had been spotted in a compound that was heavily fortified and impossible to approach through conventional means. The mission would require someone who could infiltrate through a ventilation system, barely 18 inches wide, disable multiple guards silently, and extract crucial information before the entire facility went on high alert. As Morrison studied the blueprints, he realized that none of his current team members would fit through the access point. For the first time in his career, he found himself wondering if maybe, just maybe, he needed to reconsider what it meant to be the best soldier for the job. Maya knew about Morrison's rejection before Captain Chen even told her. Word traveled fast in the Navy, especially when it came to controversial decisions. She had expected it, but that didn't make it hurt any less. For 3 days, she threw herself into her regular duties, pushing down the disappointment that threatened to consume her. On the 4th day, she made a decision that would either end her career or change everything. She requested a meeting with Morrison directly, going over her chain of command and risking disciplinary action. When his assistant told her the commander was too busy to see her, Maya planted herself in the waiting area and refused to leave. "Ma'am, you really need to go," the young petty officer said nervously. "The commander has made it clear he won't discuss your application." "Then I'll wait until he changes his mind," Maya replied calmly, settling into her chair with the patience of someone who had nothing left to lose. Morrison emerged from his office 3 hours later, irritated to find the stubborn woman still sitting there. "Rodriguez, what part of no don't you understand?" Maya stood up and looked him directly in the eyes. "Commander, I'm not here to beg or make emotional appeals. I'm here to make you a deal." Despite himself, Morrison was intrigued. "What kind of deal?" "Give me one chance to prove myself, not in some controlled training exercise, but in the field. If I fail, I'll transfer to another unit and never mention the SEALs again. But if I succeed, you consider my application fairly, based on performance rather than assumptions." Morrison laughed bitterly. "Rodriguez, I don't send unqualified personnel on SEAL missions just to prove a point. People die when they're not properly prepared." "I am properly prepared," Maya said firmly. "I've completed the same combat training. As your men, I've served in more active combat zones than half your team, and I've never failed a mission. The only difference is that you've already decided I can't do the job without ever seeing me try." Before Morrison could respond, his communication device buzzed with an urgent message. The compound mission had just been moved up by 48 hours. Intelligence indicated that the target was planning to move locations, and this might be their only chance to capture him alive. Morrison read the message twice, his mind racing. His regular infiltration specialist was recovering from a broken leg sustained during training. His backup was too broad in the shoulders to fit through the ventilation system. Every other SEAL he could call in would face the same physical limitations. Maya watched his expression change and seized the moment. "Commander, whatever that message says, I can see you've got a problem. And I'm guessing it's the kind of problem that requires someone with my specific qualifications." Morrison stared at her for a long moment, then made a decision that went against every instinct he had developed over his career. "Follow me," he said grimly. In the briefing room, Morrison laid out the mission details. The target was Viktor Kozlov, a Russian arms dealer who had been selling advanced weapons to terrorist organizations across the Middle East. He was holed up in a fortified compound in Syria, surrounded by at least 20 heavily armed guards. The only way in is through the ventilation system here. Morrison pointed to the blueprints. It's 18 inches wide and leads directly to the communications room where Kozlov conducts his business. The infiltrator needs to disable the guards silently, access Kozlov's computer system, and extract specific intelligence about his client list and upcoming weapons shipments. Maya studied the plans carefully. What's the exit strategy? That's the problem, Morrison admitted. Once you're inside, there's no quiet way out. You'll have to fight your way through the entire compound until the extraction team can reach you. We estimate at least 14 armed hostiles between the communications room and the extraction point. The room fell silent as the enormity of the mission sank in. Even Morrison's most experienced operators would struggle with those odds. Sending someone on what was essentially their first SEAL mission into that kind of situation was bordering on criminal. I'll do it, Maya said without hesitation. Morrison shook his head. Rodriguez, this isn't bravado time. If you go in there and get yourself killed, I'll have to live with that decision for the rest of my life. And if I don't go, how many innocent people will die when Kozlov's weapons end up in the wrong hands? Maya countered. Commander, you said it yourself. None of your other people can fit through that access point. I can. This isn't about proving women belong in the SEALs anymore. This is about completing a mission that could save thousands of lives. Morrison walked to the window and stared out at the training grounds where his men were running drills. Everything in his experience told him this was a mistake, but everything in the intelligence reports told him they were running out of options. If I authorize this, he said slowly, you'll have exactly 36 hours to prepare. You'll work with my best tactical advisor. You'll memorize every detail of that compound and you'll follow orders without question once you're in there. Any deviation from the plan, any hesitation, any sign that you're not up for this, and I abort the mission immediately. Maya felt her heart racing, but kept her voice steady. Understood, Commander. And Rodriguez? Morrison turned back to face her. If you succeed, it won't prove that women belong in the SEALs. It will just prove that you're an exceptional soldier who happened to be right for this particular job. That's all I've ever asked for, sir, Maya replied. A chance to be judged on what I can do, not what other people think I can't do. Morrison nodded grimly and reached for his secure phone. Get me Lieutenant Williams in tactical planning. Tell him we're moving forward with Operation Silent Thunder, and we need to prep for an unconventional infiltration specialist. As Maya left the briefing room, she realized that her entire future would be determined by what happened in the next few days. She had gotten her chance, but now she had to prove that her confidence wasn't just talk. The stakes couldn't be higher, not just for her own dreams, but for every woman who would come after her. That night, as she began her intensive preparation, Maya thought about her father and the demons he had carried home from war. She was about to walk into her own version of hell, and she could only hope that when she came out the other side, she would be strong enough to carry whatever memories she made in that Syrian compound. The countdown to the mission had begun, and there was no turning back now. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of intense preparation. Maya barely slept as she memorized every detail of the compound layout, studied surveillance photos of each guard, and practiced the computer infiltration protocols she would need to extract Kozlov's data. Lieutenant Williams, Morrison's tactical advisor, pushed her through scenario after scenario until she could navigate the mission blindfolded. Remember, Rodriguez, Williams said during their final briefing, once you're in that communications room, you have exactly 8 minutes before the guard rotation discovers the unconscious sentries. That's 8 minutes to bypass 3 different security systems, download terabytes of encrypted data, and get into position for your fighting retreat to the extraction point. Maya nodded, her mind running through the sequence for the 100th time. Understood. What's the latest intelligence on the guard positions? 14 hostiles confirmed, Williams replied, updating his tablet. 6 on the perimeter, 4 roaming patrols, 2 stationed at the main communications hub, and 2 more guarding Kozlov's personal quarters. They're all ex-military, heavily armed, and they've been with Kozlov long enough to know the compound. Like their own backyard. Morrison entered the briefing room, his expression grim. Rodriguez, I need to be clear about something. Once you start that fighting retreat, my extraction team can't reach you for at least 4 minutes. That means you'll be completely on your own against 14 trained killers who know the terrain better than you do. I understand the risks, Commander, Maya said firmly. I also understand that this intelligence could prevent terrorist attacks across 3 continents. Sometimes the mission is bigger than any one person. Morrison studied her face, looking for any sign of doubt or fear. What he saw was the same steely determination that had earned her commendations in Afghanistan and Iraq. Against his better judgment, he found himself believing that she might actually pull this off. All right, he said finally. Gear up. We leave for the staging area in 2 hours. The flight to the forward operating base in Jordan gave Maya time to think about everything that had led to this moment. She thought about the recruiting officer who had told her to consider a career in logistics instead of combat. She thought about the drill sergeants who had pushed her twice as hard as the male recruits, claiming they were just preparing her for the real world. Most of all, she thought about Morrison's words. It won't prove that women belong in the SEALs. Maybe he was right. Maybe this mission would only prove that she was an exception, a statistical anomaly rather than evidence that the military's gender barriers needed to come down. But as she checked her weapons for the 5th time, Maya realized she didn't care about changing the world anymore. She just cared about completing the mission and bringing everyone home alive. The compound sat in a valley surrounded by rocky hills, exactly as the satellite images had shown. From their observation post half a mile away, Morrison and his team watched through night vision scopes as Maya made her approach. She moved like a ghost through the darkness, using every shadow and piece of cover to remain invisible to the roaming guards. Overwatch, this is Shadow. Maya's voice crackled through their earpieces. I'm at the ventilation access point. Beginning infiltration now. Morrison held his breath as he watched her disappear into a vent that looked impossibly small. For the next 20 minutes, they could only listen to her quiet breathing and the occasional scrape of fabric against metal as she crawled through the building's air system. I'm above the communications room, Maya whispered. 2 guards present, both armed with AK-47s, both focused on their phones instead of their surroundings. Moving to neutralize now. The next 60 seconds felt like an hour. Morrison and his team listened to the barely audible sounds of Maya dropping into the room, followed by 2 soft thuds as the guards were rendered unconscious. Then, silence. Guards. Neutralized, Maya reported. Beginning data extraction now, timer starts now. As Maya worked at Kozlov's computer, her training took over. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing security protocols that had taken the CIA's best hackers weeks to crack. The intelligence she was downloading would expose an entire network of arms dealers and potentially save thousands of lives. 6 minutes remaining, she whispered into her microphone while copying files onto an encrypted drive. Data is flowing, but there's more here than we expected. I'm seeing client lists, shipping manifests, and what looks like plans for a major operation in Europe next month. Morrison's jaw tightened as he listened. The intelligence was even more valuable than they had hoped, but every extra second Maya spent in that room increased her chances of being discovered. 4 minutes, Shadow, he warned. You need to start moving toward the exit point. Almost done, Maya replied, her voice tense with concentration. 30 more seconds and I'll have everything. That's when the first alarm went off. The compound erupted in chaos as lights blazed to life and voices began shouting in Russian and Arabic. Someone had discovered the unconscious guards, and Maya's presence was no longer a secret. Shadow, you need to move now, Morrison barked into his radio. Data secured, Maya responded, her voice steady despite the mayhem erupting around her. Beginning extraction. This is where it gets interesting. Through their scopes, Morrison's team could see guards running through the compound, searching every room and corridor for the intruder. Maya had to fight her way through all of them to reach the extraction point where Morrison's backup team would be waiting. First contact, Maya reported as gunfire erupted inside the building. Two hostiles down, moving to the east corridor. Morrison gripped his radio so tightly his knuckles turned white. Everything depended on Maya's ability to fight her way out of a building filled with trained killers who knew every hiding place and escape route. She had her skill, her training, and her determination. They had numbers, superior firepower, and home field advantage. 3 more hostiles engaged in the main hallway. Maya's voice came through between bursts of gunfire. They're trying to box me in, but I found a service corridor they don't know about. For the next 4 minutes, Morrison and his team listened to the sounds of Maya fighting for her life. Every gunshot made them flinch, every explosion made their hearts skip a beat, and every moment of silence made them wonder if their communication equipment was about to deliver the worst possible news. Then Maya's voice crackled through their earpieces one more time, calm and professional despite the chaos behind her words. Overwatch, this is Shadow. I'm approaching the extraction point now. Hope you boys are ready for some company because I've got about half the compound chasing me. Morrison couldn't help but smile as he signaled his extraction team to move in. Whatever happened next, Rodriguez had already proven something that no amount of training exercises or physical fitness tests could measure. She had proven that when everything was on the line, she could deliver results that mattered. Maya burst through the compound's rear exit with 3 armed guards hot on her heels, their assault rifles spitting fire into the night. She dove behind a concrete barrier just as bullets chipped away at the stone inches from her head. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady as she checked her ammunition. 2 magazines left and at least 6 more hostiles between her and the extraction point. Shadow, we have eyes on you. Morrison's voice crackled through her earpiece. Extraction team is 30 seconds out, but you've got company coming from multiple directions. Maya peered around the barrier and saw exactly what Morrison meant. Guards were emerging from 3 different building exits, moving with tactical precision to surround her position. These weren't panicked amateurs. They were trained professionals who knew how to work as a team. I count 8 hostiles, Maya whispered into her radio. They're trying to pin me down until reinforcements arrive. Negative, Shadow, Morrison replied. Our count shows 14 total. You've eliminated 6, but 8 are still active and they're all converging on your position. Maya's mind raced as she calculated angles, distances, and ammunition. 8 trained fighters with superior numbers and knowledge of the terrain. Under normal circumstances, it would be suicide to engage them head-on. But these weren't normal circumstances, and Maya Rodriguez had never been a normal soldier. The first guard made the mistake of thinking she would stay behind cover. When he moved to flank her position, Maya was already gone, rolling behind a water tank 30 feet away. Her first shot caught him center mass before he even realized she had moved. 1 down, she reported, already shifting to a new position, as return fire peppered her previous location. The remaining guards adjusted quickly, communicating in rapid Russian as they tried to establish overlapping fields of fire. Maya listened carefully, grateful for the language training the Navy had provided. She could understand enough to know they were planning to rush her position from 3 sides simultaneously. Instead of waiting for their coordinated attack, Maya decided to bring the fight to them. She sprinted toward the nearest guard position, using a zigzag pattern that made her nearly impossible to track in the darkness. Her movement drew fire from multiple directions, but also forced the guards to expose their positions. Maya's training kicked in with lethal precision. She had spent years perfecting her combat skills, not just to prove she belonged with the elite forces, but because she understood that hesitation in combat meant death. Her second and third targets went down in quick succession, their muzzle flashes giving away their locations in the split second before Maya's return fire found its mark. 5 down, she reported breathlessly, pressing herself against a shipping container as bullets whined overhead. But they're getting smarter about their positioning. The remaining 5 guards had learned from their fallen comrades' mistakes. Instead of exposing themselves to direct confrontation, they were using suppressive fire to keep Maya pinned while they maneuvered for better angles. It was exactly the kind of tactical thinking Morrison had worried about. Professional soldiers who could adapt their strategy in real time. Maya knew she couldn't stay defensive much longer. Her ammunition was running low and the guards were slowly tightening their circle. She needed to end this fight quickly, before they could bring their numerical advantage to bear. That's when she spotted the fuel depot. 30 yards away, barely visible in the moonlight, sat a collection of fuel barrels that supplied the compound's generators. It was a desperate gambit, but Maya had built her entire military career on calculated risks that other people thought were impossible. "Overwatch, I need you to light up that fuel depot on my signal," Maya said into her radio. "Shadow, that's danger close to your position," Morrison replied. "The explosion could kill you along with them." "It's better odds than what I'm facing now," Maya said grimly. "Trust me on this one, Commander." Morrison hesitated for a split second, then made the call that separated good leaders from great ones. "Confirmed, Shadow. Marking target now." Maya took a deep breath and sprinted from cover, drawing fire from all 5 remaining guards. Bullets zipped past her head as she dove and rolled, using every evasive maneuver she had ever learned. She could hear the guards shouting to each other, trying to coordinate their fire on her rapidly moving form. "Now!" Maya screamed into her radio as she threw herself behind the strongest piece of cover she could find. The explosion lit up the night sky like a miniature sun. The fuel depot erupted in a ball of flame that sent shockwaves rippling through the compound. When the initial blast faded, Maya could hear screaming from the direction where the guards had been positioned. She waited 10 seconds for the debris to stop falling, then cautiously emerged from cover. The blast had eliminated 3 of the remaining guards instantly. The other 2 were wounded but still dangerous, crawling toward their weapons with the kind of determination that only came from professional training and desperation. Maya moved quickly to secure the area, her training overriding the adrenaline that was making her hands shake. She approached each wounded guard carefully, removing their weapons and checking for additional threats. One of them tried to reach for a concealed pistol, but Maya was faster. "All threats neutralized," she reported as Morrison's extraction team finally reached her position. "Package secured, mission complete." Lieutenant Williams was the first to reach her, his eyes wide with amazement as he surveyed the aftermath of Maya's fighting retreat. "Rodriguez, I count 14 confirmed eliminates. You took out an entire compound's worth of professional soldiers in less than 5 minutes." Maya looked around at the scene of destruction, feeling the weight of what had just happened. 14 men were dead because she had been better trained, better prepared, and perhaps a little bit luckier than they were. It wasn't something to celebrate, but it was something that had been necessary to complete the mission. Morrison appeared beside her, his expression unreadable as he examined the tactical situation. For a long moment he said nothing, just stood among the evidence of what Maya had accomplished. Finally, he turned to face her directly. "Rodriguez, in 20 years of commanding SEAL operations, I have never seen a single operator successfully engage and eliminate 14 hostile combatants in a direct firefight. What you did here tonight wasn't just exceptional. It was the kind of performance that becomes legend." Maya met his gaze steadily. "I did what any SEAL would do, Commander. I completed the mission and brought the intelligence home." Morrison nodded slowly, and for the first time since Maya had known him, his expression showed something that might have been respect. "Yes," he said quietly. "That's exactly what a SEAL would do." As the extraction helicopter approached their position, Maya realized that everything had changed in the span of those 5 minutes. She had proven something that no training exercise or psychological evaluation could measure, that when lives hung in the balance and the mission demanded excellence, she could deliver results that mattered, but more importantly, she had proven it to herself. The debriefing room at the forward operating base was silent, except for the quiet hum of air conditioning and the occasional click of keyboards as intelligence analysts processed the data Maya had extracted. She sat across from Morrison and a panel of senior officers, still wearing her combat gear and trying to process everything that had happened in the compound. Colonel James Harrison, the mission commander, leaned forward in his chair as he reviewed the preliminary intelligence reports. "Rodriguez, the information you recovered has already been confirmed as authentic and extraordinarily valuable. We're looking at detailed client lists for arms deals across 6 countries, shipping manifests that reveal planned terrorist attacks, and financial records that will allow us to freeze millions in terrorist funding." Maya nodded, but her mind was still back in that compound, replaying every decision she had made during those crucial 5 minutes. "Sir, I'm just glad the mission was successful. How many lives do you think this intelligence will save?" "Conservatively, thousands," Harrison replied. "The planned attacks in London, Paris, and Berlin that these documents reveal would have been catastrophic. Your actions tonight have prevented multiple tragedies." Morrison had been unusually quiet during the debriefing, but now he spoke up. "Rodriguez, I need to ask you about your engagement with the 14 hostiles. Walk me through your tactical decision-making during the fighting retreat." For the next hour, Maya provided a detailed account of every moment from her extraction, from the communications room to the final elimination of hostile threats. The panel listened with growing amazement as she described split-second decisions, tactical improvisation, and combat techniques that demonstrated not just courage, but extraordinary skill under pressure. "The fuel depot explosion was your idea?" Morrison asked. "Yes, sir. I assessed the tactical situation and determined that conventional engagement would likely result in mission failure. The fuel depot provided an opportunity to neutralize multiple threats simultaneously while minimizing my own exposure." Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Martinez, the base psychologist, leaned forward with interest. "Rodriguez, how did you maintain tactical awareness and decision-making capability while under that level of stress? Most soldiers would have been overwhelmed by the psychological pressure of facing those odds." Maya considered the question carefully. "Ma'am, I think it comes down to training and mindset. I never saw it as 14 against 1. I saw it as one engagement at a time, one decision at a time. Each individual contact was manageable if I stayed focused on the immediate tactical problem rather than the overall situation." Morrison exchanged glances with Colonel Harrison. They had both commanded enough operations to recognize exceptional performance when they saw it, but what Maya had accomplished went beyond anything in their experience. "Rodriguez," Morrison said finally, "I owe you an apology. When I rejected your application for SEAL training, I made assumptions based on outdated thinking rather than objective assessment of your capabilities. Tonight, you demonstrated tactical excellence, physical courage, and mental resilience that would make you an asset to any special operations unit." Maya felt her heart racing but kept her expression neutral. "Thank you, Commander. I appreciate your honesty." "I'm not finished," Morrison continued. "Based on your performance tonight, I am formally recommending you for immediate admission to SEAL training. Furthermore, I will personally oversee your preparation and ensure that you receive the same rigorous assessment as any other candidate, based purely on performance and capability." The room fell silent as the implications of Morrison's words sank in. Maya had not only completed an impossible mission, she had earned the respect and endorsement of a commander who had been her strongest opponent. But Colonel Harrison raised a concern that everyone in the room was thinking. "Commander Morrison, while Rodriguez's performance tonight was exceptional, we need to consider the broader implications. If we fast-track her into SEAL training based on a single mission, how do we handle the inevitable media attention and political controversy?" Morrison's expression hardened. "Colonel, with respect, I don't make tactical decisions based on media coverage or political considerations. Rodriguez has earned this opportunity through performance in combat, which is the only metric that matters for special operations selection." "I understand your position, Commander," Harrison replied. "But we also need to be realistic about the challenges she'll face. SEAL training has a 90% failure rate even for exceptional candidates. The physical demands are extraordinary, and the psychological pressure is designed to break people." Maya had been listening to this conversation about her future without saying a word, but now she felt compelled to speak up. "Sirs, if I may, I don't want any special treatment or consideration because of what happened tonight. If, Commander, Morrison believes I should have the opportunity to attempt SEAL training, then I want to earn my place the same way every other candidate does." She looked directly at Morrison. "Commander, you said earlier that my success tonight wouldn't prove that women belong in the SEALs. Maybe you're right. But if I attempt training and fail, I'll know that I gave everything I had to the opportunity. And if I succeed, then maybe I'll have proven something important. Not about women in general, but about judging people based on what they can actually accomplish rather than what we assume they can't." Morrison studied her face, seeing the same determination that had carried her through the compound mission. Rodriguez, SEAL training will make tonight's mission look easy. The physical challenges will push you beyond anything you've experienced. The mental pressure will test every aspect of your character. Most importantly, your teammates' lives will depend on your ability to perform under conditions that would break most people. I understand, sir, Maya replied. I'm not asking for guarantees or special accommodations. I'm just asking for the same chance to prove myself that you would give any other qualified candidate. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez spoke up again. Rodriguez, there's another factor we need to discuss. If you attempt SEAL training, you'll be under constant scrutiny from media, military leadership, and political figures who have strong opinions about women in combat roles. That pressure could be almost as difficult as the training itself. Maya nodded. Ma'am, I've been dealing with that kind of pressure my entire military career. Tonight proved to me that I can perform when it matters, most regardless of who's watching or what they expect. Colonel Harrison looked around the room, gauging the reactions of everyone present. Commander Morrison, if you're serious about this recommendation, we'll need to expedite the paperwork and coordinate with SEAL Training Command. This decision will need approval at the highest levels. Morrison stood up, his decision made. I'll take full responsibility for this recommendation, Colonel. Rodriguez has earned the right to attempt SEAL training, and I intend to ensure she gets that opportunity. As the meeting broke up and the officers filed out, Morrison approached Maya one more time. Rodriguez, I want you to understand something. My support for your SEAL application doesn't guarantee your success. The training will be the hardest thing you've ever experienced, and most candidates fail despite having every advantage. But based on what I saw tonight, I believe you have the potential to succeed if you're willing to give everything you have to the process. Maya met his gaze with quiet confidence. Commander, I've been giving everything I have to this goal since I was 12 years old. I'm not